There ain't nothing you can do no greater than it would be to have your name written in the Lamb's Book of Life.
Amen.
The biggest race there ever was. Right there it is.
Gary asked me to come and speak, and I thought, man, I don't know what to do, and then I got to thinking. It's just, I guess the older I get, the more I see how things parallel with Christianity. Marriage, you can look at marriage and get parallels with Christianity. You can look at any kind of friendship, any kind of relationship. You can parallel that with Christianity, because Christianity is a relationship between you and God and you and Christ. Amen. And so you can take that. Well, I do that with racing too. I can parallel a lot of things with racing, and I've learned a lot of lessons around racing. A few months ago, I actually saw this thing. I guess it's been a year or so back. Was in the bookstore one day, and I saw this Bible. Of course, you know how racers are. If it's got a checker flag on it, we won. You know, that's what we want more than anything, is to win and get that checkered flag. And I saw this Bible, and I thought, man, that is so cool. And I looked through it, you know, thumbed through it, and I thought, well, I don't need to buy that today. You know, I talked myself out of it. Well, after I left there, we were in Florida, in a bookstore down there. My kids were working down there. Well, I got back home, and I thought, I got to have that Bible. I was going to have that Bible. And so I got to looking for it. I couldn't find one nowhere. So I got my son, I said, hey, run back over to that bookstore and get me that Bible. Well, he went back, no Bible. I was like, dude, this ain't even right. I want that Bible. So I finally got on the internet a few months back, and I found this Bible. And so I went ahead and ordered it, and I got it. And it has a lot of stories from people in NASCAR and different avenues of racing. And it has a lot of stories and lessons to go with it. And it even goes as far, one of the pages is about the flags and racing, and kind of parallels it with Christianity. And I thought that's just neat to have. And I read up on the story in there, and I thought it was really interesting. But it don't make sense to nobody but racing fans. So I thought, well, what better place to share that story than tonight? And kind of use that. And so I want to share that story with you. It's by Ned Jarrett. So it's kind of funny, but it teaches a lesson that I'd like to share this evening. It says, who are you following? And we all know, if we go to a racetrack somewhere that's new, what do we do, guys? You drivers. If you go to a racetrack that's new, you don't know the track, you don't know what's going on, you pick out the guy that usually wins, you find out who he is, and you follow him during hot laps. As Don said a while ago in hot laps. So we get behind that guy, and we kind of see the line he's running, we kind of try to figure out how he approaches things, and we try to learn from him, because he's the hot shoe at this racetrack. So we use him as our gauge. Former NASCAR champion, gentleman Ned Jarrett, was racing one day at a local dirt track in North Carolina. And those of you who know about dirt track racing know how important it is to maintain a level of moisture on the racetrack to help keep the dust down, which Jason figured out really quick. On this particular day, the track crew had not used enough water, and as a result, the cars in qualifying rounds began to kick up huge clouds of dust, and the drivers could hardly see where they were going. Ned knew just what to do. On his first practice, he quickly began to find markers around the track that were above the dust level. If he could keep his eye on them, these markers would let him know when he was close to a turn. In turn 1, he could see the concession stand. And in turn 2, it was the corner of the grandstands. In turn 3, there was a car sitting right up on the hill, just in the right spot. In turn 4, he spotted a particular light post there, and throughout his practice laps, he worked on hitting these marks. Finding out exactly how fast he could go into a corner before needing to hit the brakes, and to his delight, he found that his system worked really well, even though the dust got thicker and thicker. After qualifying, Ned prepared for the main event. The race started cleanly, but after no more than a couple of laps, the dust began to rise, and Jarrett began looking at his marks. Turn 1, there was the concession stand. Brake, turn 2, there was the grandstand. Accelerate, turn 3, wham, bam, screech. Something had gone terribly wrong. When the dust settled, Ned found himself over the bank and out into a field. He saw, much to his surprise, that at some point before the main event, that car that he had used as a mark in turn 3 had moved. With no marker to cue him as to when to brake, Jarrett had literally accelerated through the corner, up over the bank, and out into the field. When the dust settled in the field, Jarrett found 2 other race cars sitting right behind him. Jarrett got out of his car and walked over to the other drivers and said, "I know why I'm here, but why are you here?" "Well, you're the champion. You seem to know what you were doing, so before the race, we decided we would just follow you wherever you went." We all use markers to cue us in the race of life. Are they solid, immovable objects, such as God and His Word? In Joshua 24:15, Joshua says, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord."
Amen.
Joshua had set his sights on an unmovable mark, not like Ned did in this story. In other words, who are we following? Are we just following other people who may or may not know where they're going? Or are you marking Jesus as your cornerstone? But Chip and the younger guys, they come along, and Grayson, and they look to us as leaders and followers, and they'll be followers. In Acts 8th chapter, Philip and the eunuch. Philip goes to the eunuch, finds him in the chariot, and at that point, Philip is the leader, and the eunuch needs someone to follow. And God sends Philip there to help the eunuch. He asks him, says, "Do you understand what you're reading?" He says, "How can I, except some man show me?" So at that point, you have an example of both, a follower and a leader. You have to be committed. If you're going to be a racer and you're going to win, you got to be committed to that. You got to want to do it. And the sad thing is most of us racers, we don't get to do that every day and get paid for it. We have to work another job and then be the racer all night long to be able to go. And as a Christian, most of the time, we have to be a Christian all day while we're working and all night while we're not there, 7 days a week. We had that church service at North Georgia this year. Awesome. I thought that was the coolest thing I'd ever done in my life. Well, toward the end of the night, it'd been a long day. It was dusty, and everybody was about had it. The sun had cooked everybody's face, and we had dust all over us. One pony class, during the pony class, had a real bad, pretty good wreck going into turn 1 there. One of the guys ran over the other one, and they were upset, out on the racetrack and stuff. And I guess it was probably the next race or so after that, I was standing down next to the fence. One of those young men from that pony class come down there and was in that accident, and he walked up and he said, "I just want you to know what you guys did this morning helped me." He said, "Cause when that wreck happened a while ago, I wanted to wear that boy out." But he said, "I remember what y'all talked about this morning, about life is bigger than that, and everything is bigger than that. We don't need to be doing that. Be a good example and do the right thing and things of that nature." And he said, "I appreciate that," because he said, "What y'all said this morning and what y'all did, it made an impact on me. It made me make a better choice." And I thought, people watch us, whether we realize it or not. Somebody's watching us every day, and we're going to influence somebody to make that same decision. Somebody's going with us wherever we go. So I ask myself this question a lot, and I ask you tonight. Who are we? Where are we going? And who are we taking with us? We can be leaders on the racetrack. That's all well and good. But we better be leaders in life. The racing is fun, and there's nothing like it. I quit for a few years, and there's a hole. But that's just something God lets us do. It's not the biggest picture. It's not the most important thing. And I think as we get older, we've kind of seen that. Me and Gary talk about that quite frequently, about how your focus changes. But I just want you to think of those 3 things. Who am I? Where am I going? And who am I taking with me? Because most of the time, the people you're taking with you is the ones sitting closest to you, the people you love the most. So think about what kind of example you are to the people around you. And racers, think about what kind of example you are to the people at the racetrack. Because they're watching you, and as it has said earlier, some of those people think you are the stuff, and think you are all there is, like we did Jody and Snoops and Leon. And we're looking at y'all, and they're looking at us. So think about things before you do them sometimes, which is hard to do. It's a very passionate thing, we're passionate about that. I think sometimes that's what makes us good racers, but those same qualities can make you awesome Christians. Because if you don't want to lose, hell is the ultimate loss.
Amen.
And if you like winning, there ain't but one victory lane. That's called heaven.